naked chicks on that piece of paper?
Taxpayers paid out $3.5 million to fix the flooding problem in Milo Creek above Kellogg just last year, and it's already obsolete. Good evening, I'm Richard Brown. Marianne Mishima has the day off. Topping our news, a Total News 4 investigation. A multi-million-dollar flood control project in the Silver Valley of Idaho is only 7 months old, and it's already slated for demolition, and you paid for it. Total News 4's Tom Grant has just returned from Kellogg. He's live outside our North Idaho News Bureau. Tom, what went wrong?
Well, it looks like it's a case of inadequate design complicated by a lack of communication. And the end result is millions of dollars worth of wasted effort.
The Milo Creek Flood Control Project above Wardner and Kellogg was conceived in the wake of major floods in '96 and '97. It cost $3.5 million, and it was completed just last November. But after only 2 minor high water events this spring, the top catch basin filled up with debris. And now even the Environmental Protection Agency, which put up most of the money for the project, says it's woefully inadequate for the job.
All of this is a waste.
Bob Hopper of Bunker Hill Mines, who owns this site, declined to have his picture used, but one of the few things upon which he agrees with the EPA is that this flood control project actually made things worse.
Seems kind of silly to spend all this money to make it worse, and yet that's exactly what we're looking at.
But he's outraged that the EPA, after failing to see that its original investment was used wisely, now plans to demolish this stilling basin, remove most of the riprap that was trucked in at great expense, and build a new concrete creek right through his mining landing.
What they're creating now, they call on here the new channel.
The EPA expects to spend another $3.5 million on this new channel. Plus, it will cut off access to a key entrance to Bunker Hill Mine and to millions of dollars worth of mineral reserves.
So who's to blame for this problem? Well, right now we're entering the finger-pointing phase. The EPA says, yeah, it put in a couple $1 million, but that it didn't have anything to do with the design. It blames the state for that. Reporting live, Tom Grant, Total News 4.
Man, I guess we haven't heard the last of that. Thank you, Tom.
Could a Spokane Valley neighborhood have been overtaxed by $100,000? Total News 4's Tom Grant spent most of this week trying to figure out why one group of homes was getting an unexpected bill. Tom?
Marianne, see the nice homes in this neighborhood in the Spokane Valley? Well, they sit in one school district, but they're being taxed by 2 districts, Spokane and West Valley. Now, neighbors here spent 4 months trying to get an answer from the county and got nowhere. So this week we took our cameras to the treasurer's office and the assessor's office, trying to figure out why one home should have to pay for 2 schools.
The first year they broke it down by what school district we were being charged for. And this is the first year we ever saw District 81 on our bill.
This was a $100,000 question for the people who live here. And tonight at 6, we'll show you why it pays maybe a lot of money to ask not just what the assessor is charging, but where those tax dollars are actually going. Reporting live, Tom Grant, Total News 4.
Good evening. How would you like your tax bill reduced by $100,000 or so? Well, that's how much one Spokane neighborhood is going to save in taxes thanks to a News 4 investigation. Our story starts 3 days ago when Total News 4's Tom Grant heard a family complaining about a property tax increase. Tom, you know, everyone complains about high taxes, so what made this different for you?
The difference was a new tax form, one that showed the people in this neighborhood in the Spokane Valley that they were paying not just for 1, but for 2 school districts. Lane and Margaret Johnson live on Shane Court in the Northwood development. And this year, they couldn't believe it when they saw on their tax bill that they were making payments to both West Valley School District and Spokane School District.
Your children can't go to 2 schools at the same time.
Asking around, the Johnsons found that about 30 homeowners in the neighborhood got similar bills. And they were all being hit with tax increases of $500, $600, even $700.
There's no reason for them to go up $600 in 1 year when nothing's changed.
For 4 months, they have repeatedly tried to get an explanation from from county officials.
Somebody should be able to clearly sit down and tell you this is how it was figured. And at this point, we have had no answer back.
The assessor's office told us that property values had not gone up, so I had to check the actual tax bill in the treasurer's office.
And you'd be surprised where some of your tax dollars go.
That led us to the county's new tax computer. It can break payments out to a 10/100,000th of a cent, but sometimes nothing beats a manual checkup. Our research in the treasurer's office indicated that the new computer made a mistake. You see, 7 years ago, the Johnsons' neighborhood in Northwood was annexed from Spokane School District into West Valley School District. The agreement called for the neighbors to continue paying taxes on District 81's outstanding bonds, but not to assume responsibility for West Valley's old bonds. Yet someone in the assessor's office programmed the new computer to hit up the Johnsons for a 1992 West Valley bond that should not have been on their tax bill. We informed the assessor.
What we need to do is research 92. We need to go back to 1992.
And see what?
See what happened. See what took place during that.
There's the paperwork right there.
No.
But we couldn't settle the dispute until we found the big bond book. The original paperwork showed that what everyone had assumed was a 1992 bond was actually voted upon 5 years earlier in '87, but had been refinanced in '92. The assessor quickly admitted the error.
Because we do work for the people of Spokane and the districts. And if we have found something that is incorrect, we want to correct it.
The Johnsons will have this year's tax bill reduced by $340. In total, these 30 neighbors will save about $14,000 a year for the 8 remaining years of the levy, or a total of about $112,000.
I'd like a refund, yes.
Now, many of the people in this neighborhood could actually see that refund in the form of a reduced bill when they get their statement for the second half of this year's taxes next month. Reporting live, Tom Grant, Total News 4.
Good job, Tom. Thanks. Now, could you have been overbilled on your taxes? Well, here's a good rule of thumb for checking this year. In Spokane, your taxes probably went up about $200 for every $100,000 of assessed value. If it went up much more than that, it may be worth checking with the treasurer.
A criminologist from Texas has taken a new look at one of the Northwest's biggest mysteries, a mystery that many of us know as Bigfoot.
News 4's Tom Grant has been following this unusual investigation. Tom?
Here's the premise. If Bigfoot is real, it must be leaving some compelling physical evidence. And that's why a skilled fingerprint expert wanted to look at the footprints.
Some of the most detailed Sasquatch footprints ever found were discovered in the mid-'80s in the Blue Mountains near Walla Walla by Paul Freeman.
And there was tracks here in the mud.
Freeman also came up with snapshots and even video of the creature. But the prints he found have been called a fraud, even by other Bigfoot hunters.
They were blatant fakery.
15 years later, enter police investigator Jimmy Chilcutt.
As a crime scene investigator, I deal in physical evidence.
The Texan's specialty is solving crimes by examining fingerprints. But he's also one of a handful of experts in the world on the finger, palm, and footprints of great apes.
I printed gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees.
So when he heard that Dr. Jeff Meldrum of Idaho State University collected plaster casts of Bigfoot footprints, Chilcutt asked to take a look.
Well, Officer Chilcutt came and spent several days in my lab and systematically reviewed all of the casts.
Dr. Meldrum first presented to me this casting that was cast in 1982.
The cast had been made by Paul Freeman and carried remarkably clear prints on the toes.
I determined that this was actually an enhanced or embellished casting. Someone had actually put their own fingerprints in this casting.
His ruling on print 1, a fake.
The next casting that I examined was from the Walla Walla River up in Washington.
Another casting from Freeman. But here, Chilcutt saw something he'd seen many times in police work, a scar.
What happened was this has been cut, and the skin, the flap of skin, has grown back at an odd angle so the ridges don't meet up.
But he also saw something he'd never seen before.
On humans, the ridges across the bottom of the foot go across the width of the foot, always.
The ridges on this Bigfoot cast were running up and down the foot. So Chilcutt looked at a third print from Northern California.
This casting was cast in 1967.
And he found ridges going in the same unusual direction.
It's not exactly like humans, and it's not exactly like the animals. It's somewhere in between.
Chilcutt asked himself how such odd ridges could be faked, then show up in two widely separated prints.
The Walla Walla casting was cast hundreds of miles away from this first casting, and 17 or 18 years apart.
And he came to a conclusion. They're real.
He said, Jeff, these things exist.
Dr. Meldrum was not surprised.
It just further corroborates the likelihood of the authenticity of these footprints, that in fact they are the spoor of an unknown, non-human primate, an ape, literally a North American ape.
After reviewing the physical evidence, I know in my mind that there is an animal up there.
When Chilcutt re-examined that first Freeman cast, the one with the fake prints in the toe, he found other faint ridge lines on the foot matching those in the other footprints. And now he thinks that too is real, just enhanced by someone who wanted to make it seem even more real. Richard, Marianne?
And the mystery grows. Thank you, Tom.
Wow.
Over the last 30 years, more than 190 of our neighbors near Libby, Montana have died of asbestos-related diseases. According to the EPA, Libby has the largest concentration of such deaths of any place on the planet. And even though the mine has been gone for a decade, the asbestos may still be killing people. News 4's Tom Grant has just returned from Libby. Tom?
Richard, only a few thousand people live in Libby, but over the years, nearly every one of them was exposed to a deadly dust from one of the town's major industries. Gayla Benefield visits her father's grave once a week. He died of asbestosis, as did Gayla's mother, now buried beside him.
My brother-in-law is right over here, and there's a couple of men that Dad worked with right on down there.
By the best estimates, nearly 200 in this town have died of asbestos-related lung diseases. Another 400 are now sick, including children of miners, even people who never had contact with the mine. And because these diseases take years to develop, there may be hundreds more who will become ill and die.
There look to be more cases here as a single point than anywhere else anybody's ever seen.
Paul Perinard of the Environmental Protection Agency points to this site as the original source of the illness. It's an old vermiculite mine, and asbestos was a major byproduct. It closed 10 years ago, leaving behind a playground for deer and a deadly dust. You see, for 70 years, a smokestack on the mountain spewed thousands of pounds of asbestos every day.
The amount that they were kicking out of the stack, it's likely some of that got into town, but...
Asbestos dust settled on roads and trucks and work clothes. Vermiculite laden with asbestos dust was carried to this site in Libby for processing. It sat right next to a kid's baseball field, and children played in the dusty mounds of waste. For decades, workers at the mine tracked home a deadly dust, a dust that poisoned members of their families, a dust that may linger today in their homes, in their gardens, and in their driveways. EPA crews are now taking samples from snow-covered yards and gardens to see just how much asbestos remains. Miners used vermiculite as mulch in their gardens and as insulation in their homes. Indeed, asbestos brought home on the clothes of miners years ago may still be hiding in the dust inside homes, threatening yet another generation.
I want the testing, as does everyone else, you know, to make sure that my kids are safe, my kids' grandkids are safe.
But Libby Mayor Tony Burgett, a printer who grew up here, is afraid that news of all these asbestos-related deaths will just cause more harm to the town.
That's the fear that we have, is that, you know, everybody's going to think of this as one big waste dump, that, oh, you don't want to drive through Libby, you drive 100 miles around Libby because it's toxic. And it's just not true.
While Gayla Benefield also hopes that the air in Libby is just fine, she also knows from terrible experience that things unseen can kill.
It was the dust that killed Dad. It was the dust that killed Mother. We never knew about asbestos.
And she wants some action now, because the miners may have assumed some risk, but the deadly dust went much farther.
I think the wives, in a sense, accept part of the responsibility, but oh heavens, not the children.
The EPA admits that somebody dropped the ball on this problem years ago. Now it's moving quickly to identify Libby's asbestos problems and fix them. Richard?
What a tragic story. Thank you, Tom.